All right. Hello, everyone. How you doing? Good. Is that post-lunch feeling kicking in right now? Like all wanting to go to sleep? Okay. I'll try and keep it light and fun. So welcome to Hey Mycroft, getting started with the open source Home Assistant. How many of you have a Home Assistant at home, like an Alexa, Google, things like that? A few of you? All right. Have any of you developed a skill for it before? One person? All right. This will be fun. I'd never developed one before. I decided to do, or kind of play with this too. So I'm going to skip. I also got a different setup than I'm normally used to. There we go. I'm going to skip real quick. So kind of briefly, I'm going to talk about the layout of this talk real quick. I'm going to kind of give you an introduction to what the device is and kind of how it works. Probably won't take too long because you kind of know already what it is, I'm guessing. How do you get one? You can also build one, so I'll talk about that really briefly. We'll kind of go into some skills and how you would develop some of them for your own if you wanted to extend this. I'll do a few different example skills and then kind of wrap it up in the end. So, sound good? Cool. All right. So a little bit about it. Like we said, it's a home assistant, sort of like Alexa, Google Home, all those. It's entirely open source. You can go on GitHub. You can get all the code to run it and all the code to run all the skills as well. And the speech recognition is done on the device. So instead of it pushing everything up to the cloud and then getting a response back, it can actually recognize the text on the device and then read back the response on there too. And I'll show you some of that. It's really kind of cool. And then if you choose to opt in, you can actually send stuff to the organization that runs it so they can kind of improve some of their services too. Some of the pros of this device is that it protects your privacy. It's not backed by a big tech company, so you don't have to worry about what they're doing kind of with your data or if they're kind of spying on you. It's really just all done locally. And if you submit your stuff up to the cloud, it's just kind of kept fairly anonymously. They don't know where it comes from or anything like that. You can see all of its thinking, so I'll show you kind of how you can get into the logs and see, how exactly it's processing all the different skills, how it's translating your text into the different things it can do. You can build it yourself. So this is the one I built. It's made out of Raspberry Pi, and I'll show you that in a minute too. And it's free, kind of outside of the cost of the parts for the thing. So that's really helpful. There's a couple cons to it, and I'll go ahead and just bring those up front. Depending on the device, it can be slow. So if you have like an older Raspberry Pi, it may take a few more seconds for it to figure out what you're saying, things like that. Upgrades are a little slower because they don't have millions of dollars like a big tech company would. Sometimes, things take a little longer to get out the door. And some of the newer skills are slow to come out because it just doesn't have that huge backing yet. But hopefully maybe some of you can start contributing to the skill set. So if you wanted to purchase a Mycroft, they have the Mark I now. So that was funded on a Kickstarter, and it's that cute little thing there. You can change its eye colors and make its mouth move and things like that. And it's like about $150, I think. They just started to make a new one. That's the Mark II here. It has a cool screen, and you can change the different things on it too. If you want to build one yourself, they have a Pycroft, which is kind of what I did here. So mine's just a Raspberry Pi, and then this omnidirectional microphone speaker combo. And that was about like $40, I think, for me. You can also download it on Linux, which is kind of what I'm going to show you here on the computer. So it runs a little bit more efficiently for like giving a talk on it. They also have an Android package. It's not ready deployed on the store yet, so you kind of have to download the code and run it yourself, but they're working on getting that available. And then they're working on a Windows version or an Apple version that's not quite out the door yet. So, like I said, a little slower because it's open source. If you were to get a Raspberry Pi, it's kind of simple. You just kind of go to their website, where you can get these slides later and click that link to go straight to the image. You just flash it on a card, and when you plug it in, it's already installed and ready to go. So it's going to read off a code, and then you just go on the website to pair it, and then it's just activated. Similarly for Linux, kind of the same thing, except you clone the Mycroft core repo. Go into the directory, do the install, so I'll just make sure it has all the packages it needs, which is mostly like Python things. And then you can either start up or start Mycroft all, which will, it'll listen to me. It's going to complain here in a second. Forgot to turn off the microphone on it. So all just runs all of the services in the background, and then debug runs all the services and then brings up the command line prompt. So you can do the debugging stuff with it. And similarly, when you download it the first time, you just pair it online on their website. I have the website real quick. I was going to pull it up if I remember which browser window it's in. Not that one. Well, I'll find it later. All right, so it's pretty simple. I think we did that already. So yeah, just pairing it up. Go to home.mycroft.ai, and that's kind of the website of the organization. And it synchronizes settings across multiple devices if you have them. So that's the main part of it. And you can also tell it to turn on skills or turn off skills. So it's kind of all done through them, but they don't really track you or anything like that. So it'll read off a 6-digit code. You just type that in, and then you're just kind of good to go. So it's really easy to set up. So the core package of it, it has a few different components. The first one's an audio playback. So that's kind of the obvious where it just reads the speech to you. They have an open source one that's pretty good. I've been kind of playing with it. It sounds really reasonable. There's a British voice that sounds really weird, but the American voice seems a little better. Sorry, y'all. The message bus, so that's the communication part where it listens to what you're trying to say, sends a message to a skill, kind of does some routing, things like that. The skill service itself, so it takes your text, parses out what it's trying to do, passes that to the particular code, and then gets a response back. The voice capture, which actually listens to your voice and translates it into text, that's also an open source package, but I think they have a non-open source package you can switch to if you want. And finally, the enclosure service. So when you run it on Linux, you don't have an enclosure service, but if you got like one of the 2 devices that they have, there would be an enclosure. And you can also build your own, and they kind of give you instructions with that on the website. So really quickly, how do we make a skill for it? So we need to identify the intent of it. So what do you want to do? So for instance, do you want it to tell you what the weather is? Do you want it to look up a stock price quote? Things like that. And then from there, determine what words it wants to respond to. So if you're looking for something like the weather, you might say, what's the weather today? But you would generally want to look for like weather today, the kind of like what is sort of kind of optional. So you can kind of build this sort of hierarchy of importance of words and then tell it, you have to have these are nice to haves, if you will. And you can also set it up for different languages too. So if you're in English, look for these words. If you're in French, look for these words. And then from there, you'd write the code to produce that particular spoken response. And I kind of want to go into a couple definitions that they use throughout the product, which will make a little bit more sense when we get into some of the code. So the work word is the words that you would use to kind of turn it on. So in this case, by default, it's Hey Mycroft. But you can change that. They have different options on the website too. The utterance is after you've woken it, what you say after that. So like what's the weather today would be an utterance. From there, that gets passed to the intent engines where it tries to parse out the words. And then you build the intents to do different things. And then finally, you return a dialog object. And the dialog is just whatever it speaks back. So you can kind of build that up or just return some predefined ones. And maybe I could show off some of those real quick. Go over. All right. So this is the debug window. Oh, hey, where'd you go? My windows are not working for me today. There we go. Okay, maximize you. There we go. Okay. So when you run the debug, it pulls up this interface. And this is actually a really nice interface. The top part is all the logs. So you can kind of see what it's doing, how it's processing, when it reloads some skills, things like that. And then the bottom part, where it started transcribing me apparently, is where it's listening for input. So anytime it hears something or says something, it's shown down there in the history. And then you see at microphone level, I have the microphone turned off, so it's kind of getting a little bit of small residual noise. If I turned it back on, you would see it's kind of picking up some more stuff around here. So for a demo, hey Mycroft. Hey Mycroft. Hello world. I think it's still waking up. Maybe I should restart it. I think it's still trying to process that last one. Oh, hi. Let's start. Everybody loves live demos, right? There we go. So it's also, as it's loading skills, it's kind of nice to see what it's loading. If you have an error in your skill, the error would usually show up in this log too. Can I maximize that window again? I don't know why it didn't stay open. There is an error. I haven't quite figured out what that's specifically on my machine, but it says training complete, so that's when you know it's loaded up all the intents that it's going to do. Hey Mycroft. Hello world.
Hey YouTube.
Hey Mycroft. Hey Mycroft. What's the weather today?
It's currently shower rain and 2 degrees Celsius. Today's forecast is for a high of 2 and a low of 1.
Oh, not bad. So you can kind of see the back and forth down there at the bottom, but you can also see where, when it heard the wake word, it starts recording, detected that it heard the wake words, and then looks for a specific utterance that you said. So from there, it knows where to pass it around. Well, that's fun. That looks like a internet error that showed up. So that's kind of the basic idea. You can do a bunch of other things like set alarms or look up stock prices, or there's a couple different games that you can download that on there. So pretty cool, but I also like that you can kind of see how it works, because I'm always one of those that likes to tinker with things.
Did you have to train it with your voice at all, or is it?
No, it just kind of worked right out of the box. That's pretty nice. Okay, so for a skill, there's a certain layout to how the code works. The first repo is the core repository for Mycroft. So, like I was showing you, download that so it could work in Linux. There's also a Docker image of it. And if you're really bold, you could try and get it working on a different system. And then the skills repo, and that's where literally all the different skills are at. I was going to show that off too. I'm also using a new computer I haven't used before, so this is a bit fun. Oh, here we go, this should work. If I can drag this over here. Actually, we'll just do that. Slash Mycroft. Yeah. So this one's the core repo. This has all the code for how the thing itself works. I can't type either, apparently. Y'all are watching me fumble right after lunch. Maybe this will be entertainment. Mycroft. OSS Mycroft. Skills. Yeah. There we go. So each one of these different skills is a submodule to a different repo. So what you do is you'd make a repo of just your skill, and then when you're ready to submit it, you would PR it against theirs by adding a submodule. And that's how that works. So I was going to go into my personal skills that I made, which they're not super fancy, but it's not the one. There we go. Okay, so go back to this. Okay, so yeah, there's the two. So within a particular skill itself, there's a few different directories that kind of have to be there and structured in a certain way. The first one's the dialogues. So those are what it's going to respond back. And these are usually, I'm going to call them canned phrases, so phrases it would definitely say in a particular way. So in this case, if you had a hello world, the dialogue in English would be, inside that hello.world.dialog file. And you can do more than one phrase, so it can just pick a different one so it sounds a little bit more conversational. The vocab is what it's listening for. So in this case, hello.world.voc would have the different words that it would be listening for to trigger this hello world. So in case hello world or maybe like hi world or just hello could work. And then, there's also a README file, and that just is kind of like metadata about the skill. Init.py is pretty much where the bulk of your code will go, and I'll show those in a bit. And then requirements.sh is if you have to have any like operating system requirements to make this thing work. And then requirements.txt is if you have any Python packages you need to make this thing work. Okay, so real quick, I want to take a moment. If a few of you want to tweet something real quick to Mycroft at NDC, I'm going to try and see if I can get this skill to work. So I'm just going to have it read hashtags in a bit. Please, nothing dirty. This is getting recorded. All right. So I'm going to go into code. So I have, here we go. So the first skill that it didn't actually end up loading, but it still works. I was testing it earlier. Is what I'm calling the Welcome to NDC London one. So I was going to have it just, like, hi, can you welcome the group? And it was going to say in response, like, hello, welcome to NDC. So kind of a simple sort of hello world sort of thing. So this is the init.py file. At the top, you have to do a couple of things to include the core skills in the intent builder. And then you just make a class for whatever your skill name is. In this case, welcome NDC London. And then you have to have that create skill. So it just tells it to add the skill into the set. And then intent handler. There's two ways to do it. One's an intent builder. And I think that's kind of their older way to do it. So we're not going to actually build one with those today. But require means look for this vocab file and include it. So it's going to look for that welcome NDC.voc file. And when it sees that get triggered, then it's going to run this intent function here. And literally all it's just going to say is speak this dialog from the welcome NDC file. So welcome NDC.dialog. There's also just a speak function, and that would just be give it text and it would just read it. So speak.dialog looks at it from the file. Where's mouse cursor? I have two different setups here, so I can't see my mouse. Where is it? I should have tried this on a projector first, probably. There it is. Okay. So in here, I just have a few different things to listen for. So can you welcome the audience? Welcome our audience. So it would listen for any of these and try to trigger off of that. And in response, it would speak from this file. So I just had literally the one thing to say from there. So if you had more than one line in here, would just pick one by random and read it out. So it could kind of sound different each time. And double check, I don't think it was actually working, but we'll see. Hey, Mycroft. Hey, Mycroft. Welcome the audience.
I don't understand.
It didn't load in correctly for some reason. I think the skill name on it changed, and so it wasn't loading in. But it works, I swear. Okay, so that's the first skill. It's not really super exciting. The second skill I had is a little bit more exciting. So that was going to read the hashtags. There we go. So where are we at? So in here, I had to tell it to add a Python Twitter package. So that way it can contact the Twitter API to do it. And then down here in the code, we have a little bit more complicated stuff. So we import the Twitter package on top of everything else. So I'm going to make a new class called read hashtag, and here it's from Mycroft skill. And then the handler is going to look for read hashtag from the vocab. And that's just, I think literally it just read the hashtag or list the hashtags. So anything like that. I decided not to give you all my Twitter keys. Sorry. So we can make a quick Twitter connection. And then as I add the logger info, it will actually show up in that debug screen. So you can have .info, .debug, .error, different things like that. I kind of verify that the credentials work, look up the user ID just to make sure it's working. And from here, I can get a search for that hashtag. So anybody tweet out on it? No? Hopefully? Oh, you can catch up. So for each one of the tweets it gets, so I say just get like 5 of them, I kind of build up this text that it's going to read out. So it's just like username said blah, 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 or username tweeted blah, blah, blah. And then gonna actually like speak, literally here's the last 5 tweets with the hashtag Mycroft at NDC, and then speak that text that we just built up from there. So we can try this real quick. Hey, Mycroft. Hey, Mycroft. Oh, did I turn the microphone? Yeah. Hey, Mycroft. There we go. Read hashtag.
Here are the last 5 tweets with the hashtag Mycroft NC. Mycroft tweeted Mycroft handing test. Left interest tweeted Hagiki Girl Sarah Mycroft handing London. Tank Thomas tweeted Hey Mycroft handing London at Echo 67 Vinig J. Lucy Run tweeted What is your favorite color? Mycroft hand.
Purple. A little bit more reliable than the first skill, apparently. So, I mean, still pretty simple to use. You know, it really wasn't a ton of code. The bulk of it was just like setting up all the Twitter stuff to get it to work. And you could do this for like to-do list managers if you wanted to add, you know, items to your list or remove them, you know, check them off as done. And then my third skill I wanted to show off is a little bit fancier. I think I want to show it off first before. I think there's a bit of an echo, which is why it's having a little trouble understanding me. Hey, Mycroft. Hey, Mycroft. Maybe I can turn the microphone up on here too. Turn it up a little more. Yeah, I think it's getting some background noise. Hey, Mycroft. Hey, Mycroft. Actually, I wonder if I could use this microphone to pick up a little better. What's your favorite color? Whoever tweeted that? Orange. Orange? Oh, it's a good color. Anyone else have a favorite color? There we go. Hey, Mycroft. There we go. Hello, world. Just to get off.
Hello.
Okay, cool. Okay. So we're working. Okay, here's the third skill and what I hope will be more entertaining. Hey, Mycroft. Hey, Mycroft. Knock, knock.
Who's there?
A broken pencil.
A broken pencil. Who?
Never mind, it's pointless.
You are so hilarious.
I think the monotony of it really helps, don't you? Which is pretty much how my friends respond to me anyway. Like, yeah, sure, that was funny. Let's try another one. Knock, knock. Oh, hey, Mycroft. Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Little old lady.
Little old lady. Who?
I didn't know you could yodel. It's made worse by how long this takes.
That is the best joke I've heard all day.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, that was terrible. Anyway, but one of the things you noticed was I could carry on a conversation with it. It didn't have to be just a call and response and then it was done. So it actually didn't need me to keep saying like, hey, Mycroft, you know, cow go who? Hey, Mycroft, no silly, cows go moo. that one took a little bit more work to do, but it still was relatively easy to do. So I kind of made a new skill here for knock knock skill. I made kind of a helper function here to just say if I'm passing it a dialog, get a response from me and return that back as text. So dialog would be an object to send to it one of the dialog files, and then return response would just give me the text back from that. So that's how I did the back and forth. So with this intent handler, I looked in the knock knock file for the text to listen to, in this case, just literally knock knock. So when I said, hey, Mycroft, knock knock, it would say who's there in response, get me to say something after that. And then kind of do the same thing again. Listen for what I said, repeat that back to me. So that's what the noun here is, because I'm like, I don't know what it is. And then get noun who, so it would respond back. And then literally, it's just whatever I said after that. It would just read something from the last file. So here we had multiple dialogues that I could say. Knock, knock, who's there? Blah, 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 who? And then from here, it would read one of the different random responses, including the best joke it's heard all day, which I don't think it's heard that many jokes, but makes me feel good telling silly jokes in front of a room full of strangers. Just for fun, I threw in ding dong, so I can actually say like ding dong, who's there? And it would still kind of do the same thing each time. And it's recording once you hear the doo-doo sort of noise. So you can, so if you try to talk too fast, it won't pick up everything. So it's just one of the things you gotta kind of pay attention to, but. Excuse me. So just in the end, you have to have that create skill function at the end to just add this to the whole set. So it's generally pretty easy to do this. You can build kind of more complicated things with this too. Up here you see there's a .require, so it has to hear something from that file. But you can also do .optional. So you can do something like an optional phrase or required phrase and then like another optional. Or you can do them in kind of any combination you want to sort of build up a kind of thing it's listening for. And then if you switch different languages, you can build different subdirectories in here for, I'm doing US English, you could do French and other things too. So it can respond in a bunch of different languages too. And then there's a whole bunch of other different intents in there too. And there's a lot of examples on the website, but I didn't want to go into some of the really, really detailed ones because that would mean this code would be pages and pages and pages long. It's kind of hard to parse out. Interesting. Kind of. Any questions so far?
How would you install it? So you're not only not basically satisfied.
What was that? Sorry.
How would you install this on Mycroft?
How would I install it? Oh, good question. So I cloned the skills repo. So I have the GitHub repo in one directory. Where it's installed its skills from mycroft.as website is /op/mycroft/skills. So what I did was I just linked my skill folder from my GitHub repo into that one. So as I made changes, it just propagated in there, and it reloaded instantly. So maybe I can try doing that. Maybe one of these simple ones and try to edit it real quick. So if I didn't want, let's just, I want to change this to 1 and I hit save. It should notice, because I didn't want you all seeing my keys, so I didn't edit that file. We can open the actual skills I think I have. Yeah, that one. Where's that? There we go. There's like the knock knock joke. So if I did, let's see. I can't think of a thing to change on here. Like, I don't know, if I want to add another, like, left, and and save it. It should take effect almost instantly. Let's just make every joke absolutely terrible. Nothing's funny at all. She'll see as I made a change, skill knock knock tried to reload. So hopefully almost instantly it should kick in. Hey Mycroft. Oh. Hey Mycroft. Knock knock.
Who's there?
Etch.
Who's there?
Oh. Etch.
Who?
Well, that joke got ruined. I was going to say Etch. Etch who? Bless you. Yeah. I think it tries 3 times and then, yep, here we go.
That's not funny at all.
Right. So if I can't hear, you know, it will keep trying to do the conversation. And you can build in stop functions. If you're saying, like, reading the news, you know, it's reading a big paragraph of different things, you can tell it to stop and it will. There's a stop function built into it, so you can actually stop a skill in the middle of it doing something. So I think that wraps back to the question, where is it stored? /op/Mycroft/skills, and it will reload if it's in that directory as you make changes. And somebody else have a question? Oh, yeah.
In the output, if say a word is recognized, so say something like A, B, C, D, E, does it try and pronounce it, or does it just kind of wait out?
Oh, so if you wanted to say the letters?
Like, what would it do? Say, if you treat something like A, B, C, D, E, will it try and pronounce it, or will it, what would it do?
So like say A, B, C, D. By the way, you can also type in things if you don't feel like talking all the time. Yeah, so A, B, C, D, E. Yeah, you have to kind of.
A B could E.
Yeah, so you kind of have to phonetically think through things. Like I think it was trying to read the Mycroft.ndc as one big word, even though really that's not how we would parse a hashtag out. But so if you were to do something like that, you might have to actually say like, okay, parse out the capital letters and add spaces in there. Take off the pound and add in hashtag to do things like that. And was there a question in the back? I thought I heard. Yeah.
So the speech recognition, the AI for that, presumably there's some trained network or some big table or something somewhere that's doing that. That obviously that's running locally, which is different to how some of the spy ones work.
Yeah.
But who did that? That seems like an expensive commercial task to train that sort of network. Where's that? Is that open source?
That's a good question. So yeah, so I think it's, oh shoot, I don't remember the name of it. There is an open source package that does the speech recognition. So it hears the syllables and then tries to parse them together as words it knows. So I think there's an English language dictionary in there somewhere. But sometimes I've told it things and it's recognized like names and stuff too. So I don't know if it necessarily, I don't know how it works. It's a little above my pay grade, I think. But they do have a different like a proprietary text-to-speech engine you can use too. You can go into the settings and swap it out. Is it that one? Yeah, it was that one. Let's see. So you can go into here. You can, I'll log in real quick. Yep. Also conference Wi-Fi, right?
Do you need an account to run the local one, or is that just for
Yeah, because it does the synchronization with the website, you do have to make an account on there.
So what does it say? Sorry, I think a lot of people here are thinking that kind of like, I don't want to share stuff, so I want to be.
Yeah.
So what is my? I appreciate you may not know in detail, but what requires a synchronization? What needs to be told?
So here, Jess is the name of my base one here, and then Linux is the name of this one. If I make a change to like my location, it will update on both at the same time. Same for like time zones, things like that. So I'm based out of the eastern end of the US. So when I moved here, all the times were off, all the weather was off, things like that. So I went into the settings and like I can change this one's location. I said, you know, I was in Pittsburgh, but this one I changed to London, Westminster. So it synchronizes through that. If you go into kind of where it really kind of needs the synchronization is if you go in here to the kind of skills library and pick that you want another one to add, which, why am I not signed in? I'm like, I know I have some of those installed. Sure. Yeah. So as you add or remove, it goes to all of your devices and adds them or removes them. So basically, it's just kind of a synchronization point. It's not storing your sound files or anything like that. Or actually, it's not storing your searches either. It's just kind of a small synchronization point between all of your devices. So if you had like one in your living room and your dining room and your bedroom, I can do that. And that's kind of also where the log file comes in nice. You can see what it's doing. It will always tell you when it's transmitting something up or when you make a change and it synchronizes back down. So if I'm in here and I can go back to settings. So it was reading the temperature in Celsius. If I hit a change here, let's go to Fahrenheit. Here within hopefully a minute, it should show you that it's received a notification to update. Oh, hopefully not that one. Yeah, wake up. Oh, I think it's hearing wake up and I'll turn the microphone off. Oh yeah, there it is, configuration skill. Remote configuration applied, so it got those new settings and it applied them here. Past that, it doesn't really do any communication. There's you can opt into the open data set where it says like, it will record like your wake words and some of your things, and that's just to make sure their text-to-speech or voice recognition thing can get improved. So they have a thing up here. You can go to tagging if you feel like doing it. Precise, that's the name of it. So these people have donated their voices to this project, and so you say. So it heard that and it sent it up to the cloud, and it's saying, was that Hey Mycroft, or was that something close to Hey Mycroft, or was that not anything close to Hey Mycroft? And I think that was just background noise. So you can train it a little better with that. And one of the things they're working on is, not that, Deep Search, which is a Mozilla-based kind of cloud engine. So Mozilla is pretty privacy-focused. So this would be, if you choose to opt into doing Deep Search, it would send your things up to the cloud. Mozilla would process it and come back, but it's still not tagged to you personally. It's just kind of a send up, they figure out what it is and send it back. So that helps a lot with different accents that stuff hasn't been trained on yet. Any other questions so far? Yeah.
So you might run entirely offline.
When you disconnect from the internet, it complains because every so often it tries to contact home base just to make sure there's no changes to settings and stuff, and it will say it lost internet. But things like looking up the weather and all those do require the internet, so it kind of mostly loses its feel for what it's trying to do, just because it can't look up queries and stuff either. And it does have tie-ins to like Wikipedia and Wolfram Alpha 2, so you can give it, other different types of things to look up, and it will do those. But ones like what time is it, it doesn't need to actually go online to do those, so we probably do those locally, but not, it would still kind of complain when it goes offline. Yeah. All right, guess we're kind of getting close to time, so I can well, actually, we're not close to time, but I'll still go ahead and wrap up. So, yeah. So hopefully, being in Python, you noticed it's pretty easy to kind of get, oh, yeah. And if you did make a skill and you wanted to send it up to everybody, you thought everybody could use it, put your skill inside of a repo on GitHub, clone their skills repo, add yours as a submodule to theirs, and then do a PR. And they have a list on their website of make sure these things are kind of in order before you submit it. And then they'll probably approve it and throw it up on the skill store for everybody to get. It's kind of in the end, it's an open source Home Assistant. It's really kind of cool, I think. All of the speech recognition and voice output is all done locally on the device and not thrown up in the cloud. Everything's really easily done in Python, I think. And there's a really good, way of making it easy to kind of parse out language, which is really kind of a hard thing to do. So I think they have a pretty good setup there. My name is Sarah Withee. I'm Geeky Girl Sarah on Twitter. And if you have any questions, I'll throw the slides up in a bit. I don't think they're on the website yet, but I'll get them up after this talk. And if you want to come up here and play with the device and kind of see the output and everything, you're more than welcome to. So thank you for coming.